I should have seen it coming the moment my father introduced Vanessa as my new sister. We were both 18, standing in the grand foyer of our family's estate, and she looked at me with those wide, innocent eyes that would become her signature weapon. Even then, something in my gut twisted with warning, but I pushed it aside. After all, what kind of person suspects a grieving girl who just lost her mother? That was 12 years ago. Now, at 30, I finally understand that my instincts were right all along. My name is Jenny Morrison, and this is the story of how my stepsister tried to steal everything I'd ever built, including my fiancé. It started small, the way poison always does. The first few months after Dad married Vanessa's mother, I actually felt sorry for her. She'd lost her father young, and now her mother had remarried into wealth she'd never known. She seemed overwhelmed by our lifestyle, the staff, the galas, the expectations. I took her under my wing, showed her how to navigate our world. "You're so kind, Jenny," she'd say, her voice soft and trembling. "I don't know what I'd do without you." I believed her. The first crack appeared during our freshman year at Yale. We'd both been accepted, me on my own merit, her with what I now suspect was significant financial persuasion from Dad. I'd made friends quickly. Melissa, a brilliant pre-law student, Claire, an artist with a wicked sense of humor, and most importantly, James, my best friend who happened to be gay and possessed the sharpest bullshit detector I'd ever encountered. "Something's off about Vanessa," James told me one night in my dorm room. "The way she watches you when you're not looking, it's calculating." "She's just adjusting," I'd said, defensive. "It's hard being the new girl." James had given me a look but dropped it. I wish I'd listened. Vanessa worked slowly, methodically. She'd mentioned casually to Melissa how I'd said something dismissive about her career plans. Something I'd never said. She'd tear up to Claire about how I made her feel stupid for not understanding art the way we did. Each lie was small enough to be believable, each tear perfectly timed. Within 6 months, my friend group had shifted. They still included me, but there was distance now. Coolness. And Vanessa was always there, playing the victim so beautifully that even I started questioning my own memories. Then came Ryan. Ryan was my first serious boyfriend, a senior when I was a sophomore. Handsome in that careless way some men are, but with a cruel streak I was too young to recognize. He liked control, liked making me feel small, but he was charming when he wanted to be, and I mistook intensity for love. Vanessa studied him like a textbook. She learned what he liked, the way he responded to helplessness, to admiration, to subtle challenges to his ego. I watched her transform around him, becoming softer, needier, looking at him like he hung the moon. "Your sister really looks up to you," Ryan said one day. "Stepsister," I corrected automatically. "Whatever, she's sweet, innocent." The way he said innocent should have warned me. I found them together 3 months later, not in bed. Vanessa was too smart for something so obvious. No. I found them in the library, her crying delicately on his shoulder, his hand stroking her hair with an intimacy that made my stomach drop. "Jenny," Vanessa had gasped, pulling away with perfect timing. "I was just telling Ryan about my mom. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to monopolize him." "It's fine," Ryan had said, but his eyes lingered on her. The breakup happened 2 weeks later. Ryan said I was too intense, that he needed someone softer, more understanding. He was dating Vanessa within a month. I was devastated. But worse than losing Ryan, who, looking back, I didn't even really love, was losing my father's sympathy. "Vanessa can't help who she falls for," Dad had said when I tried to explain. "You need to be the bigger person here, Jenny. She's had a harder life than you. Show some grace." That became the pattern. Anything Vanessa did, any hurt she caused was excused because she'd had a harder life. My pain was dismissed because I'd had every advantage. It didn't matter that I'd worked for everything I achieved. It didn't matter that I'd never asked to be born into wealth. All that mattered was the narrative. Vanessa was the victim, and I was the privileged princess who couldn't handle competition. James was the only one who saw through it. "She's playing a long game," he told me after the Ryan debacle. "I don't know what her endgame is, but she's systematically isolating you. Your friends barely talk to you anymore. Your dad takes her side in everything, and now she's taken your boyfriend. When are you going to see it?" "See what?" That my stepsister is some kind of master manipulator? Come on, James, that's paranoid. Is it? Think about it. Every friendship you've lost, every misunderstanding, she's been there, whispering in someone's ear, playing the victim, making you look like the villain. She's good, I'll give her that. But I've been watching her, Jenny. When she thinks no one's looking, the mask slips. I didn't want to believe him. Believing him meant accepting that my family life was built on lies, that the sister I'd tried to love had been undermining me for years. It was easier to think James was being dramatic. So I ignored the warning. After college, I threw myself into my career. I'd majored in business and minored in international relations, and I landed a position at a prestigious consulting firm in Manhattan. I rented a penthouse apartment, built a new circle of friends, dated casually but never seriously. I was building a life separate from my family, from Vanessa. It worked for a while. Then I met Michael. Michael Chen was everything Ryan wasn't: kind without being weak, confident without being cruel, successful without being arrogant. We met at a gallery opening, introduced by mutual friends, and the connection was instant. He was a corporate attorney, brilliant and driven, but with a dry humor that made me laugh until my sides hurt. "I like you," he'd said on our third date, direct as always. "I'm not playing games here, Jenny. I want to see where this goes." 3 years later, he proposed on a beach in Santorini, and I said yes without hesitation. I should have known Vanessa wouldn't let me be happy. The engagement announcement was published in the Times. Within a week, Vanessa had called, her voice syrupy with congratulations. "I'm so happy for you, Jenny. Michael sounds wonderful. You'll have to bring him to the house soon. I'd love to meet him." Warning bells rang in my head, but Michael was eager to meet my family. "It's important," he said. "They're part of your life, and I want them to be part of ours." The dinner was a disaster from the start. Dad was his usual distant self, making small talk about the firm while barely looking at me. But Vanessa was a revelation. She wore a dress that somehow managed to be both modest and devastating. Her makeup subtle but perfect. And she looked at Michael like he was water and she was dying of thirst. "It's so wonderful to finally meet you," she said, shaking his hand just a beat too long. "Jenny's told me so much about you, though she never mentioned how handsome you were." A laugh. Self-deprecating and charming. "But then she wouldn't, would she? She never brags." Michael smiled politely, but I saw the flicker of interest in his eyes. Not attraction. Not yet, but curiosity. Vanessa had that effect on people. She made you want to know more, to understand why someone so seemingly perfect would be so modest. Over the next few months, she inserted herself into our lives with surgical precision. She'd call about family events, and somehow Michael would answer my phone. She'd show up at restaurants where we were dining, always with a plausible excuse. Meeting friends, grabbing takeout. Each encounter was brief, pleasant, unremarkable. But I noticed things. The way she touched his arm when she laughed. The way she asked his advice about legal matters, making him feel important. The way she'd mention casually times when I'd been stressed or difficult, painting a picture of me as someone whose perfection was a facade. "Your sister is nice," Michael said one night after another coincidental encounter. "Stepsister," I corrected, my tone sharper than I intended. He raised an eyebrow. "Is there tension there? She seems to really admire you." How could I explain without sounding paranoid? How could I tell him that her admiration was a weapon, that everything she did was calculated? I couldn't. So I said nothing. James, however, had no such hesitation. "She's doing it again," he announced, barging into my apartment one Saturday morning. "I saw her at that new bistro on 5th, and guess who was there with some guy friends?" "Michael." Michael mentioned he was meeting college buddies for brunch. Did he mention that Vanessa just happened to be there? That she joined their table? That she was laughing and touching his shoulder and playing the adorable little sister card? My blood ran cold. "You're sure?" "Jenny, I love you, but you need to wake up. She's running the same play she did with Ryan. Get close, play vulnerable, make herself indispensable, and then..." He snapped his fingers. "She moves in for the kill." Michael isn't Ryan. He wouldn't... Michael is a good guy, which makes him vulnerable in a different way. He wants to believe the best in people. Vanessa knows that. She's probably already told him some sob story about feeling isolated, about you being cold to her, about just wanting to be part of the family. Am I wrong? He wasn't. 2 days earlier, Michael had mentioned that Vanessa seemed lonely and suggested we include her more in our plans. When I'd hesitated, he'd looked disappointed. We need proof, James said. Something concrete that shows her pattern of behavior. Otherwise, if you confront her, you'll just look jealous and petty. How do we get proof? James grinned, sharp and dangerous. Leave that to me. Over the next month, James conducted what he called Operation Unmask the Bitch. He reached out to Ryan, my ex, who by then had married and divorced Vanessa after discovering her in bed with his business partner. Ryan was more than happy to share text messages showing how Vanessa had systematically manipulated him, made him doubt me, and ultimately isolated him from everyone who might have warned him about her true nature. James contacted my old college friends, Melissa and Claire, who, older and wiser, admitted they'd been played. Vanessa had fabricated stories, twisted words, and created drama where none existed. They were ashamed they'd believed her, but Vanessa had been convincing. She made everything sound so reasonable, Melissa told me over coffee. She never outright said you were awful, just hinted, suggested, made us question our own perceptions. By the time we realized what was happening, you'd already distanced yourself from us. I'm sorry, I said. I should have fought harder for our friendship. No, Claire interrupted. She should be sorry. We should be sorry. You were the victim here, and we let her isolate you? But the most damning evidence came from an unexpected source. My father's assistant, Margaret, who'd worked for our family for 15 years. She pulled James aside at a charity event and handed him a flash drive. I probably shouldn't do this, she said, but I've watched that girl destroy Jenny's life piece by piece, and your father is too blind to see it. These are security camera files from the house. I think you'll find them interesting. The files were a revelation. Hours of footage showing Vanessa's mask dropping the moment she thought she was alone. Her sneering at photos of me, her practicing tears in the mirror, her on the phone with friends, laughing about how easy it was to manipulate Daddy Dearest and his boring daughter. But the most damning footage was from a family dinner I'd skipped due to work. Vanessa, thinking she was being subtle, had invited Michael. The camera caught her touching him constantly, leaning close, creating intimacy. It caught her crying about how I was pulling away from the family, how she was worried about me, how she felt like Michael might be the only one who could reach me. It caught Michael's expression, concern mixed with confusion, and it caught the moment when Vanessa, thinking no one was watching, smiled to herself with cold satisfaction. Got her, James said. We planned the confrontation carefully. It would happen at my father's annual charity gala, a glittering event attended by 500 of New York's elite. Vanessa would be there, playing the devoted daughter. Michael would be there as my date. And James, bless him, would be there as master of ceremonies. The night arrived. I wore red, a power color, James insisted, and felt like I was going into battle. In a way, I was. Vanessa looked stunning in white, of course. The victim color, the innocent color. She greeted me with air kisses and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Jenny, you look bold. Thank you. You look virginal. Her smile tightened. Where's Michael? He'll be here soon. Why? No reason. I just wanted to say hello. I bet she did. The gala proceeded as planned. Dinner, speeches, the charity auction. I played the part of the devoted daughter and fiancé, smiling until my cheeks hurt. Michael was attentive, but I caught him glancing at Vanessa several times. She'd positioned herself across the room, looking sad and alone despite being surrounded by people. It was a masterful performance. Finally, James took the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, please. We have a special presentation tonight. A tribute to family, loyalty, and the importance of seeing people for who they truly are. The lights dimmed. A screen descended. And the footage began to play. It started with the college years. Ryan's text messages, projected large enough for everyone to read. Vanessa's manipulations, her lies, her calculated seduction. Then Melissa and Claire, recorded earlier that week, explaining how they'd been deceived. Then the security footage, all of it, unedited and damning. The room fell silent except for the audio from the videos. Vanessa's voice, cold and mocking, describing her plans. Her laughter as she discussed manipulating our father. Her admission, caught on camera, that she'd never loved Ryan or anyone else. They were just tools to hurt me, to take what I had, to prove she was better. And then the footage of her with Michael, her calculated vulnerability, her fake tears. I watched my father's face go from confusion to horror. I watched Michael's jaw clench, his hands curl into fists. And I watched Vanessa's carefully constructed mask shatter into 1,000 pieces. This is, she started, standing up. This is taken out of context. Jenny, you can't believe. Sit down, Vanessa. My voice cut through the room like a knife. I stood, walked to the front, and faced her directly. For 12 years, you've played the victim. You've taken my friends, my boyfriend, my father's love. You've lied and manipulated and destroyed, all while making everyone believe I was the problem. That's not... You tried to take my fiancé. You've been working on him for months, the same way you worked on Ryan, trying to make him doubt me, doubt us. But here's what you never understood. Vanessa, I'm not the naive girl I was in college, and Michael isn't Ryan. Michael stood, walking over to stand beside me. His expression was granite. I want to be clear, he said, his lawyer voice filling the room. Jenny told me she suspected something was wrong, but I didn't believe her. I thought she was being paranoid, overreacting to normal family dynamics. I was wrong, and I'm sorry. He looked at Vanessa with contempt. Every word you said to me was a lie. Every tear was manufactured. You're not lonely or misunderstood. You're a manipulator and a fraud. Vanessa's face cycled through emotions. Shock, anger, fear. Finally, she settled on defiance. You think you're so perfect, Jenny. You've always looked down on me, always been Daddy's perfect princess while I had to fight for scraps. Maybe I did what I had to do to survive. Survive? My father's voice was cold, colder than I'd ever heard it. Is that what you call destroying my daughter's life? Lying to me for over a decade? Using me? Daddy, don't call me that. Don't ever call me that again. He looked at her like she was a stranger. I want you out of my house. Tonight. You'll receive a check for $50,000. Far more than you deserve. And after that, you're on your own. You can't, I can, and I am. Security will escort you out. As 2 security guards approached, Vanessa's facade finally broke completely. You'll all regret this, she hissed, her voice stripped of its usual sweetness. Every one of you, especially you, Jenny. You think you've won, but I have won, I said quietly, because I didn't become you. I didn't let your poison corrupt me. I fought back, not with lies and manipulation, but with truth. Everything you've built was based on deception, Vanessa. And now everyone knows. They escorted her out, still screaming threats that echoed through the silent ballroom. The aftermath was messy, as these things always are. My father and I spent hours talking, him apologizing for his blindness, me trying to forgive years of dismissal and pain. It wasn't easy, and our relationship would never be what it might have been. But it was honest finally, and that counted for something. Melissa and Claire became friends again, real friends this time. We were older, wiser, and we'd all learned hard lessons about trust and perception. Michael and I postponed the wedding by 6 months, using the time to rebuild and strengthen our foundation. The incident with Vanessa had shaken us both, but ultimately it had also proven something important. We chose each other, even when tested. I should have believed you from the start, he said one night as we sat on my apartment balcony watching the city lights. You believe the best in people. That's not a flaw. It is if it blinds me to the truth. Then we'll keep each other honest, I said, taking his hand. That's what partners do. James, unsurprisingly, became the hero of the hour. His social media following quadrupled after someone leaked the story, and he parlayed his newfound fame into a consulting business helping people document and escape toxic relationships. Somebody has to look out for the nice people of the world, he declared. Might as well be me. As for Vanessa, I heard through the grapevine that she'd moved to Los Angeles, where she was attempting to restart her life and, presumably, find new victims. I felt a pang of pity for whoever she set her sights on next, but I didn't feel responsible for warning them. I'd spent enough of my life focused on Vanessa. It was time to focus on my own happiness. The wedding, when it finally happened, was perfect. Intimate, joyful, and free of drama. My father walked me down the aisle with tears in his eyes. James served as my man of honor, making everyone laugh and cry with his toast. Melissa and Claire stood beside me, solid and true. And Michael looked at me like I was his entire world. In my vows, I promised him honesty, loyalty, and love. But I also promised myself something. I would never again doubt my instincts about people. I would never again sacrifice my truth to keep the peace. And I would never, ever let anyone make me feel less than I was. That night, as Michael and I danced at our reception, I caught sight of my reflection in one of the ballroom's mirrors. The woman looking back at me was strong, scarred, but unbroken. She'd survived betrayal, manipulation, and years of gaslighting. She'd fought back and won. "What are you thinking about?" Michael whispered. "That she almost destroyed me," I admitted. "Vanessa. For years, she tried to take everything, my friends, my family's love, my confidence, you. And she almost succeeded. But she didn't. No, she didn't, because even when I couldn't see her clearly, some part of me knew. And I had people like James who refused to let me fall. And now," I smiled, real and genuine. "Now I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, with a man who loves me, friends who see me, and a future built on truth instead of lies." Michael pulled me closer, his lips brushing my temple. "I love you, Jenny Morrison Chen. I love you too." As we swayed to the music, surrounded by people who genuinely cared about us, I realized something important. Vanessa had spent years trying to steal my life, but she'd failed to understand the fundamental truth. You can't steal what someone else has built through genuine effort and authentic connection. You can't fake real love, real friendship, real worth. She'd tried to be me, to have what I had, but she'd never understood that none of it could be taken. It had to be earned. And in the end, that made all the difference. 3 months after the wedding, I received a package with no return address. Inside was a single photograph. Vanessa on some beach, smiling at the camera with that same calculated innocence she'd perfected years ago. On the back, she'd written, "You haven't seen the last of me." I looked at it for a long moment, then did something that would have been impossible a year ago. I laughed. I laughed because I realized I didn't care. Let her plot and scheme. Let her try to reinvent herself in some new city with new victims. My life was my own now, fortified by truth and surrounded by people who truly knew and loved me. I tore up the photograph and threw it away. "Everything okay?" Michael called from the kitchen, where he was attempting to cook us dinner. "Everything's perfect," I called back. And for the first time in 12 years, I meant it.